Expat Pod. My name's James, your host. I'm a British person living in Sweden, and today I'm joined with Rajeev, who is an Indian gentleman living in Sweden as well. So it's very Sweden-based today, but do you want to give yourself an introduction, please?
Sure. Hey, James, and hey, everyone. Myself, Rajeev, and I live in Malmo, Sweden, and I'm working here for IKEA as a cyber security manager. I've been here for now 2.5 years plus, and I moved here with my wife, and now I have a son who's 14 months old, so he was born here. I'm enjoying my paternity leaves right now. But yeah, so I moved from Jaipur. So my native town is Jaipur, which is in northern part of India, Rajasthan. That's where I've been born and lived almost all my life. But before coming here, I used to work in Bangalore. So that's the IT city, of India. So now I work for IKEA in Malmo. Yeah, it's been good.
That's amazing. Yeah, interesting. Like the jumping around and how cities in India kind of focus on a speciality. Is there anywhere else which has a similar thing? You said Bangalore's IT. Is there another city which is a different speciality, or is it more mixed?
There are a few metro cities in India. From my own, journey, I started from Noida, and then moved to Actually, I then moved to London. I worked there as well, and then moved to Gurgaon, then Bangalore. So there are a few cities in India which are, which have IT big companies offices, but IT city is only Bangalore, where almost you'll find every IT company's office. But then there is a northern part of India which is called as NCR. That's where Noida, Gurgaon, Delhi, capital city of India, they all are part of NCR. And that's where I started my journey.
Amazing. Well, thank you for the introduction, and we'll kind of see you all for section 1, which is all about getting there. So welcome to section 1 of the podcast, all about getting there. Now, Rajeev, you said you've come from India and you're now in Sweden. So what was your reason for coming? Did you have a job already assigned here, or did you want to live in Sweden first?
Actually, like I said, I worked for 1 year in London, and before coming to Sweden, I had almost six or 7 years of experience. And during that time, I worked with US-based clients, UK-based clients, some of the European-based clients. So I had a fair bit of, idea how life is in Europe, and specifically in UK, Nordics area. So I actually, when I started looking for a job in Europe, Sweden was not the only target.
Yeah.
I mean, there were few other countries as well where I started looking for the job. But then, luckily, I found a job in IKEA, and I found that job from India. So I applied on LinkedIn. Like it's not the first job I applied for, but then this was one of the job which I got selected for interview, and then the entire process happened, all in place. But yeah, I got this job from India. I moved here directly to join IKEA. So I didn't worked for IKEA in India.
Nice. And what was that process like then, moving over? Did they help you a lot with the transfer, or was a lot of it yourself?
Yes, and this is an interesting story because so I was supposed to join on 1st of April 2020 in Malmo, and I actually packed my bags, sold all my stuff because I knew I'll be living here for long. And then obviously COVID happened with everyone, but then on 23rd or 24th of March, lockdown was announced in India. All the flights and everything was closed. So that one, since the day lockdown happened, there was a little bit of stressful time where I sold everything. I was kind of packed my bags, planning to move here, and then I was supposed to start my job on 1st of April in Sweden, and that couldn't happen. But luckily, IKEA supported me, and then I started my job from IKEA India itself. That time there was no digital office in India, but I started from there itself, working from home. And then when the lockdown was open, then I moved here in September. So the first week lockdown open, I flew and I moved here. But then during those 6 months, IKEA kind of supported me a lot. One, to help me to start from India itself. Second, from visa perspective as well, because The first visa I got, I couldn't travel on that visa, so I had to go through the same process again. So I moved there with the second visa which I got, and during this entire process, I had a mobility
Yep.
team from IKEA who helped me through the visa, through my stay in Bangalore. How can I start from the Bangalore itself, working for IKEA Sweden? So that was really helpful, and it's been three times I applied the visa. So the process part is quite easy. I mean, that's not very
No.
stressful. The waiting period for the decision, that's what is
Yes.
stressful.
Yes. We had.
Yes, and that's not in your control. That's in no one's
Yeah.
control.
My decision came during the summer break, so I had submitted mine, I think, end of May or start of June, and I was waiting and waiting for a response, but it happened on the 17th of July, the acceptance, but the people in the mobility team that were helping me move were on vacation. So I didn't actually find out until August that I had received it 3 weeks ago. And then like you had said, I moved out my house and was planning to fly instantly, and it was all a bit of a nightmare, but I got here as well eventually.
Yes, yes.
And with your so you've kind of had your delay back home. Were your visas different between the first one and second one, or were they the same visa type?
No, it was the same visa. The problem was that if you don't travel within the first four
Yeah.
months of the visa, there could be an issue when you apply a PR, or you go for an extension. That was something which was done to see the future. I could have still traveled with the same visa, but then I would have lost those 6 months actually. So I traveled after 6 months, so that I would have lost those 6 months when in future I would have applied for PR or citizenship, especially PR actually. So then the mobility team decided, no, we should apply for the visa again. Anyways, I was not able to travel for another
Yeah.
2 months. So that was the only extra time it took, and then I was here by the time everything started getting normal.
And with your visas, is it every year you have to renew them now? Or?
No, it's. I think for me there was an issue because my passport had only 1.5 year of
Yeah.
life left, so I had to apply it again after 1.5 year. But generally, you get it for 2 years
Oh.
first, and then you get it extended or renew for another 2 years, and then there is when you go for the third extension, if it's 2+2, then chances are that you might get
Yeah.
a PR because
Right.
there is a eligibility of 48 months, and then you spend some time, and then instead of giving you an extension, they might give you a PR. So that depends situation to situation.
Okay. So when you moved, did you have accommodation kind of already figured out for when you landed, or?
Yeah. So like I said, a mobility team, they had the responsibility of visa, my flight tickets, and my accommodation as well. So there was a company which provided by IKEA, which actually was supposed to give me some options before landing here. Even though I didn't say yes to any of those options before landing here because I wanted to see the area, location, house, and everything. But as soon as I landed, they showed me an apartment in the first week itself, and I think I am one of the few lucky ones who actually moved into my own rented apartment in the second week itself.
Wow.
So I didn't stay in hotel for more than 12 days actually after moving here, and they only actually supported me with the bank process. Bank account opening process and personal number process, getting an appointment for ID card. So, and maybe again, I would say I'm more lucky at that time because due to lockdown and everything, there was not much rush during that specific time. So I got everything done within short period. Even I got my decision in 2 weeks itself.
Wow.
So yeah, again, it's more of the
Yeah,
timing thing. Now it's totally
my
different.
first number took 13 weeks from when I went for it, and it's like the bandwidth is huge. It says, oh, it's between 2 and 18 weeks. And people I know who joined Volvo, and I obviously work for the Polestar, they were saying, oh, 10 days. I got it in 10 days. So I'm like, what? And I arrived like 3 days after you, and yours.
Yes.
It's such a lottery, I think, with how it works. But now I've got it all, and it's much easier.
No, my extension took 2 months because now the situation is different. Even I'm not sure if everybody knows that some of the companies or most of the companies can apply with a fast track
Mm.
certificate. So if your application is with a fast track certificate, you get a decision earlier than a regular
Mhm.
application. So I got now the second one in 2 months, but I've heard with a lot of people that they haven't got a decision in 6 months, even
Wow.
9 months
Yeah,
as
I
well.
know a friend of mine who's also from India, who I work with. He's waiting for his permanent residency to come through. But that's been over 6 months, and I suppose you can then chase up again if it's been longer than that. So he's going
Yes,
through that process. But
yes,
I guess with high influx of refugees at the moment into the country, the Scouts are very busy, which is
yes.
understandable. But yeah, it's very interesting. And then because one thing I found really hard is finding a house here because the whole home queue system and first-hand, second-hand contracts. I don't know if Malmo is the same as I live in Gothenburg, which is it's the second biggest city in the country, but I mean, Malmo's not much smaller. But I'm living in like a long-term Airbnb situation, which was furnished and everything. It's a lot more expensive than what I would get if I had done some research, but it was just easy. And then I'm looking now to see if I can move out and find somewhere cheaper. But I've got 60 days on home queue, and like the apartment, which is 2 beds or 2 rooms, even is 800 points, which is
Yes.
over 2 years you have to wait before you can like rent something. It's crazy.
No, I think, and this is again from my own experience, that the apartment I moved in when I moved to Sweden, I've changed another one, so I'm living in the second apartment. And when I was looking for the change, I I kind of figured out that there is a, I mean, if you there are two factors. One is which area
Mm.
you're looking for. Then yes, the queue would be huge. The apartment I'm living in, this was in the same area I was living already in my previous. I got this, apartment within 7 days. So I was on the queue. Not many people were in the queue in this area. And the second reason is that there is a range of rent which everybody kind of wants to have their apartment. So if you are trying to find out an apartment within that range, yes, there would be a long queue. Like in Malmo, if you go to the Malmo Central, you can get a bigger apartment or more space in reasonable price. But if you come in Helia or any outer or new areas, then you might get the same space in a little bit extra rent. So I kind of had this flexibility that I wanted to have a house earlier or more sooner, because my parents were supposed to move here. My baby was or my wife was
Yeah,
pregnant actually. So then I figured out that if you want to have a specific area and within specific range, yes, then there would be a queue. But if you are able to sacrifice some
yeah.
choices, then maybe you can have a house more quicker than
You gotta
normal
learn to use the
routine.
system in your advantage, right?
Yes, yes,
Yeah, because I
yes.
want a washing machine. That's one thing I find really weird is that people don't have washing machines in their house. They have like laundry rooms in the basements and stuff. Well, I'm lucky where I live now.
Yes,
There is
yes.
one, but on home queue again, it's like there's not one in the house. It just seems really odd to me. But that's just yeah. I guess I'm quite privileged to have had that growing up everywhere I've been. But yeah, so I don't think there's is there any much information you have to give on how you got here, or are we good to go to section two?
I think yes. Maybe I can add is that and that's what I've been trying to do now, is that I got this job in Sweden through
Mm.
LinkedIn, and I got this job directly from India. A lot of people I know, they kind of came here on some project and then switched jobs here. But I kind of feel, and this is what I'm trying to do right now, is that it's possible to get jobs from
Yeah,
India. It's not like, or not only India, but even outside, Sweden. I'm saying you don't have to be present here to get this job. Obviously, you get benefit, but then there are, better chances of getting a job, because yes, there are a lot of shortage of IT people. That's what
yeah,
I know.
that's a great tip. Thank you for that. Great. So we'll finish section one, and we'll see you all for section two. Welcome back to the podcast, and welcome to section 2, all about being there. So, Rajeev, you've now moved to Sweden. So, what was your first day like? What was it like to get off the plane and step foot onto Swedish soil? How did you find that?
The first day, I would say first, or actually, I landed here in the evening, so I would not say the first day, but yeah, first 2 days was little bit, a different experience because the part of the world India I come from over there, the lockdown was quite serious, so we had to wear a mask. We were kind of not going anywhere outside, and when we came here, and this is something I still talk about that the situation was totally different in Sweden.
Mm.
And when me and my wife we went around in supermarket or looking around our first 2 days, we were always wearing that mask, right? So because we had that habit of wearing mask in India. So when we came here and started doing that, nobody was wearing mask here, and that's what the approach was. I mean, I kind of got to know it a little bit later, but then people were actually looking at us. Why are these people wearing masks?
Mm.
I mean, it was more of it felt like we had some symptoms. That's why we are wearing those masks,
Yeah.
and not anyone else. So we kind of had to discontinue that practice after the first 2 days, and then everything was fine. But overall, the experience of coming here, and we kind of moved here. I think just before a weekend, or there was a weekend in few days, and that's when the actual surprise happened. Because in India, if there are 2 days where people go out, that's Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah.
If you go anywhere in any market, any shopping mall or any restaurant or anywhere, you will find people everywhere.
Yeah.
Because that's the weekend, right? Over here, Saturday was still okay, but I was quite surprised to see Sunday. Like there was nobody out there on
It's
Sunday,
a ghost
and
town,
things.
right?
Yes, and a lot of restaurants got closed by 6,
Yeah.
and I was like, okay, so second day, nothing to eat. Obviously, we didn't bought much of the groceries from India. We did have something to eat, but then we went around to look for a restaurant on a Sunday, and then we were like, oh, there is except Burger King and McDonald's and all these kind of restaurants, all of them are closed. Shopping malls closed, and we were like, okay, so Sunday is the day to sit at home and do your own work, and that's been yes, and that's been like that since last 2.5 years. So now Sunday is more of a relaxing day rather than going out day.
Yeah, because I came over for a work trip for 2 weeks when I first came to Sweden in 2021. It was September, and similar to you saying, the UK where I was living was still had masks everywhere. You still had some level of restrictions, and I came to Sweden and I was wearing my mask on the bus to the office, and everyone was like, "Who's this person doing this?" And yeah, it's quite. You do feel people are watching you more because of it. And same with you, I came on a Sunday quite late, and I got a bus to my hotel, and I tried to find some food, and went down to the hotel bar to try and get the food. Oh, they closed. And I was like, but it's 7 o'clock on. Like, how do you not have food? And, it's Sunday. My watch is telling me off now. So they said, oh, you have to get Fedora, and I was like, okay. So I tried to get, but I haven't got a Swedish phone number, so I couldn't use Fedora. And I was like, so I'm just going to starve. And then Uber Eats came to my rescue with some food. But it was
Yes.
such a complete culture shock. Because in the
Yes.
UK, like, everything is open most of the time now. It's a blessing and a curse, because I do like the way it is here. I do like you have to plan ahead, like Systembolaget, for instance. Like, you have to make sure you get it all in before Sunday if you want to have friends over for a dinner. You don't just go to the shops and buy a bottle of wine.
And Sunday was still not that surprising or shocking for me. But then the first summer started, Easter weekend. I went to Kalmar with my friends, and again, and I kind of do this comparison from India because that was the first year, and we still have that mindset coming in from your own country, right? So we went to Kalmar over that Easter weekend, and then literally everything was closed. Like it was more of a zombie town where we didn't had anything to. We went out to have dinner, and there was no place open, even on a Saturday, not even Sunday. And then we eventually had to survive with ham shop, those frozen food which you can buy from ham shop. So then I realized that a holiday weekend or a holiday time is for everyone, not just for us as an office going people, but for restaurants and for everybody. And that's not how it's like in India, because in India, holiday or these periods, restaurants, and there it's more business period for them.
Yeah.
People go out and eat a lot. But that was quite surprising. So that was one of the incidents which actually opened my eyes that I should avoid planning these holiday periods within Sweden at least.
Yeah, no, it's a very good point. Yeah, because England's the same. When there's like Easter or bank holidays, everyone's like, "Yeah, come in. We want your money because you're off work." And downtime for workers is uptime for hospitality.
Yes.
But yeah, I think it's a good idea though to have everyone have the time off, because they also deserve it, and it's nice to look inside and be with your friends and family more. I look forward to these times off all the time, and it'd be unfortunate if they didn't have the opportunity to do it themselves. And I guess my next question with regards to being here is the language. Like, how did you find when you first came over the Swedish language?
Okay, so it was the good part of living here is that yes, initially when I went to supermarket or to buy anything, everybody obviously starts conversation in Swedish. But if you request them that, okay, can we have this conversation in English, and it's still now when I call to a bank or do anything over a call, I request that, and everybody switches back to English, because I don't think that's a problem here. Kind of everybody knows English.
Yep.
Maybe few, I don't know. I haven't had that experience till now. But yes, there are cases where the start is with Swedish, but when you request or now sometimes people actually recognize us that with this face I'm an Asian person, so they might not start with Swedish first. But I don't think language has been issue since I've been here. But over the last 2.5 years, I would not say learning Swedish, but I've grasped some words, what you need to do shopping. You go to grocery, you know Swedish words of groceries, numbers, all that stuff. So I know how to survive outside, even though it's not required. But sometimes all these notice boards, ingredients written on the grocery product, they're all in Swedish and they're not in English, right? But then now I've started, reading and understanding those things. But if you would ask me to say something in Swedish, sorry.
I learned German for a while, and it reads very similar, so I can kind of work out what some sentences are, and then I go to my colleagues and I try and pronounce the words, and they're like, "What?" It's like there's so many weird sounds, like the "h" and stuff, the "sk" and have you started SFE or Swedish for immigrants?
No, so when I moved here, so again through this mobility company IKEA partnered with, or it is a benefit of IKEA, I don't remember. We had this flexibility of registering with Fox Cola, something. I don't remember the name, but yeah. So we had the flexibility to have a paid Swedish course with them where we get the priority. So me and my wife, we did. Registered with them. We started our Swedish course in the first few weeks, but it kind of became a little bit stressing because the Swedish classes for me was like I'm in office till 4 or 5, and then it was 3 hours of 3 or 4 hours of classes. Yeah, they're long. Every week there were like 2 or 3 days which were 4 hours class, Swedish class, and then eventually you have some homework to do, and then you have to learn as well, and that was also fine. The problem was that because we were it's that time there was still lockdown, if not lockdown, but we were not meeting people that much, even my co-workers as well. So we had this problem of doing conversation with anybody. So till the time you don't do a conversation, I mean it's a problem. You can read, you can understand, Google Translate is always there, but if you don't do a conversation, then it's an issue. So eventually I dropped out because it was too much for me. After I think I did around 10 classes, So that's why I know numbers,
Yeah.
so the starting or the basic level of
I mean,
Swedish.
that's what you need to get by, right?
Yes, but my wife did more classes and she did SFI as well gradually. I think the first level of course as well.
Mm.
But then, yeah, due to baby, we had to, or she had to leave that.
Mm.
But now, any letter comes to our place, it's in Swedish, so
Yeah.
I give it to my wife. Please read it and let me know what does it mean.
Yeah. I know, I'm like that. When I get something from Scousersburg, I'm like, is it a bill? I don't know. Do I owe someone money?
Yes,
It's
yes.
really cool.
So, but yeah, but gradually, I got to know that I can opt in for Kivra. So I'll, instead of getting those letters, I'll get all my letters digitally,
Yeah, I found out that today.
except very few.
I
Except very few.
Yeah. No, that I found today. My colleague sent me it because I was trying to look at HomeQ and stuff, and I had to upload my payslip. And it's this, digital mailbox. And I was like, oh, this is amazing. Like, this needs to be everywhere.
Yeah, that's quite helpful because a lot of things comes quite instantly if you have that digital mailbox, and if you wait for a paper, copy of that letter, it will take 2-3 days. So I think it's quite helpful.
Yeah, because there's one thing with Sweden is that the postal service is not like the UK. Everything's the next day. Whereas here it's like, no,
Yes,
it'll be 3 days because
yes,
we have people doing the job and we want to make sure they're happy and not working too much because they'll be stressful. So it'll be 3 days and you get used to it. Whereas having this
yes.
other option with being digital is really quite nice because if it's really important, then you opt for that. But if it's not that important, then you can wait, right?
Yeah. Except I think Scatterbucket and Migration Bucket's letter.
Mm.
I think all of the rest can come through Kivra.
Mm.
So that's the benefit you get. But I mean, it's so now I just download that letter, do a translation through Google Translate, and it's easy.
Oh, that's such a convenient thing to have. And then, is there anything else you've found really interesting since living here? Like, what's the culture like? Is there such a big difference between back home and here? Has it been difficult? What do you miss?
I miss food, to be honest.
Everyone says food.
There are I mean, it's you're bound to miss that you are in a different country. But then I think there are few Indian restaurants, and but they all kind of have changed their taste level to European taste, which is little bit less spices. So we kind of miss those authentic Indian food, and because there are not many restaurants, so we kind of also miss that variety. So we have limited options only, right? So the food, I think if you will ask this question to any Indian, they will say first thing as food. But then from culture perspective, I think there are few things which I would like to mention here. One thing is coffee or fika.
Yeah.
The first day, I remember first day I actually went to office. Not the first day when I moved there, but I started in the office a few days later
Yeah.
when things started getting normal. And my first day I went to office, and kind of over here everybody will ask you to have a coffee, right? And then because it was my first day, I didn't want it to be rude, and I said yes to everybody. Okay, yes, 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 yes. I had 8 or 9 cups of coffee
You were
just
shaking
during
home.
just during the office 6-7 hours, and I'm like, okay, this is too much. But gradually now I've gotten used to, if not 8-9, that's too much. But yeah, I have gotten used to saying no, and also I can have a good number of coffee. So that's one culture thing which I realized here, and I think Sweden is one of the top countries in the consumption of coffee, if I'm not wrong. I got to know that recently.
I mean, I drink
And
a lot of coffee, so
yes, and the second thing is the queue culture, like the patience, I would say. Uh, I mean, there's a lot of patience here. I mean, I've adapted to that culture now, but I've seen people in queue everywhere, and it's not, there is nothing like anybody's in hurry to get things done. Even from process perspective, entering into a system, let's say medical or even letters is one thing which you said, all those things. So I think I've, I've seen more, you know, that quality of patience in Sweden. So that was two major things I remember. I mean, there could be a lot more, but that's going to consume the time.
That's very interesting. Yeah. Queuing is really a good one. Yeah, because even in England, we're known for living a queue, but people get angry in the queue. Whereas here, they like a queue as much as we do, but then it's more like they have a chat, and it's more social place, I guess.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I've seen those. I've seen those ticket machines
Yeah.
in small shops as well, where people are happy to just generate that ticket and wait for their own
Yeah,
number. So it's
there's like there's a shop here with like a zero waste shop without packaging on like the food and things. And I went there with my girlfriend when she was here, and we walked in and we only wanted one thing, picked it up, and then went to the till. And they're like, "Do you have a ticket?" And we're like, "No." What? And there was like
yes,
no one in the shop.
no, but good. You actually mentioned one more thing. I missed that, which is the recycling and
Mm.
sustainability thing. Sweden is quite good in that. I mean, I the first day I moved into my apartment and I saw six different dustbins. I'm like, why do I need six dustbins? And then I got to know that there is one for glass, one for cardboard, one for plastic, one for food waste, and one for different things.
Mm.
And eventually when you go to the garbage room as well, then there are different dustbins.
Mm.
So it's quite it's more embedded into people's habit as well. Now I'm used to that
Just keep
things as
separating
well,
it
where
always. Yeah.
yeah, you keep separating it always. And that's something quite surprising for me,
Mm.
that even though when you go out to buy groceries, there's a lot of plastic, lot of
Yeah.
cardboards, and a lot of packets outside those groceries. But then with this recycling and process, it's quite easy. I mean, I really like that. And then there are machines in the supermarkets as well, where you can return those plastic bottles
Yeah.
and
You can.
the cans. So that's also one of the amazing thing which I got to know, that okay, you don't actually have to dump everything in just one dustbin,
Mm.
and then eventually it will be the someone else's job to segregate that waste.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I really like that.
That's a very good point, and hopefully that spreads around the world as a good idea, at least for now, until we have solutions which make packaging a bit better and make us not have to
Yes.
do it. But that's a very good point and a great way to end section 2. So thank you, and we'll see you all for section 3. Hey, welcome to section 3 of the podcast, which I still haven't named yet. Really, it's just a recap, but this is where I kind of ask my guests, Rajeev, about some tips they've got for people who've moved from India to anywhere in the world, who've moved to Sweden, and anyone to anywhere. So I guess let's start with moving to Sweden. What one piece of advice would you give someone who wants to move to Sweden?
I mean, there are so many of them, but it's difficult to choose one of them. But I think, and this is again, I would say that from my own experience, it's been 2.5 years, so I can share that. A lot of time when I do conversations with my friends, family, or Indian
Mm.
co-workers or ex-colleagues I used to work, when I tell them, my, let's say, rent here or
Mm.
any expenses, not just rent, any expenses, there is a habit of converting things into the local currency, which is
Yeah,
INR.
yeah.
And then when you convert that, then automatically people say that, oh, it's so expensive.
Mm.
It's so expensive to live there. But I mean, and that is one thing which I want to share, is that even though it sounds expensive because you convert them into local currency, but then eventually when you live here, then you would understand that things are not yes, it is getting expensive because of inflation and all that stuff. But if you do convert currency conversion to INR, then everything would be expensive. And this is one of the question which came into my mind when I was about to move here, and that's when I was looking for information through YouTube, through Quora, through that time whatever portals available, and there was no
Mm.
Instagram Reels and all that stuff 3 years back, right? So, and I didn't get that information at all.
Yeah.
I had few people know which couldn't give me much of the information, and that's where I was quite worried that okay, do I have enough salary? Because I didn't even knew that what salary I'm getting, will that be
Yeah,
enough?
it's quite
Will I be able to?
confusing. I had to Google like average salary in Sweden and average cost of food and things like that. It was tough.
Yes, because if yes, if I convert that into INR, that's
Yeah,
huge. But then if I come here and I now I live here, obviously, I was quite confused at that time. Is it enough? And that's what a lot of questions I get, is that, oh, we are getting this salary. Is it enough to live a decent
mm.
life here? And that's a tip I would like to give, is that do your research. Now there are better information available out there where you can get more details about almost everything. I mean, now it's a lot better in terms of planning your move. How would you be able to live here? How would you be able to survive here? What could be the expenses and all that stuff? So plan that and see whether it makes sense to move here, because a lot of time people move just because it's Sweden or any European country or US or UK, but then eventually, if see that if you don't have enough salary, or if you're not able to survive, then it becomes
Yeah.
stressful because you leave your life in India. So that's what people should first check and plan and see, is
Mm.
it enough.
That's a very good tip. And yeah, I did quite a lot of hours on my computer just trying to find out, can I survive, and always converting, because this like, divide by 12 is roughly pounds to krone. And I'm always like,
No,
is it a good value? How much
the
can I spend on that? And then when I went to Denmark, I kept trying to divide by 12, but it's wrong. Daily spend is not the same.
it happens first few months. It happens first few months. Even I moved there, the first second month I was always converting in, like, it's so expensive, it's so expensive, it's so expensive. But then eventually you get used to it, that okay, you're earning in SEK and you're spending in SEK. So it let's not think about
Yeah.
INR till the time you don't have to send the money in India. Yes, then you do think about
And
INR.
then the banks will charge you some money to send money abroad. That's what I'm finding
Yes.
at the moment.
if if you are looking for a job in Sweden, I think then the best place to look for is either LinkedIn or Arbets website, which is a Swedish job bank where you can find all the jobs available in Sweden, because that's the place where and this is something I just got to know, that is the place where companies have to post their
Yeah.
jobs if they want to hire somebody internationally or outside of EU. So, I mean, I think automatically, if you look at that platform, you more or less you will find jobs for all the fields, not only in IT, but then eventually most of them might already be eligible for international hiring. And that's super good if you find that all that information at a single place.
Yeah, it's a good point, and I'll put a link to that in the show notes. So if people do want to look at that, they can find it, which is a really good tip you've just given as well. I didn't have that, but LinkedIn was what I used for a lot of jobs, and I was looking at. I just kept my job from the UK when I moved over. Didn't have to worry about any of this stuff, but I can imagine it can be quite a
Yes.
minefield for people to go through and understand even what qualifications you need, or
Yes.
like what are the job descriptions mean. They vary from country to country, so it's really confusing.
Yes.
But yeah, so I guess that's great for Sweden. Do you have any tips for anyone who wants to live anywhere and from anywhere, not say from India, but what tips would you give if someone from some random country who's moving to another random country? What bit of advice would you give them as a person who's moved?
Ready to accept changes. I mean, I have changed a lot since I moved there, but I knew those changes because I've lived in another country as well. But then I think a lot of time we kind of think that we are changing the country for job, for better life, and money, traveling, food, etc. But eventually, the things which change is your day-to-day life. You make changes in your day-to-day life, a lot of changes which you don't even think of when you're actually looking for a job, or when you're still in your own country or wherever you are before moving to another one. So those are the things which kind of have to get into your own
Yeah.
habit. That I can give you an example. In India, you can easily get a maid. and those cleaning services, plumbers, whatever you can ask for, you can get a service. You could just have to, book a call, and you will get that service in India. But here, kind of, if you don't, want to spend too much money, then you have to do these things on your own. Obviously, you can still order these services once in a while, but then it's your daily job to, get used to that. You will not get, let's say, Indian food outside. Just again, relating to my situation, you would not get your authentic own country food. You would have to do 10 different things which you were not doing in your own country. uh, Plumbing could be one thing, cleaning could be one thing, all that stuff. So plus you have to adapt to some of these, qualities, or you need to survive. I would not just survive, but
Yeah.
to live here, because you have a different culture in the next country. It could be any country and it could be any culture, but I'm sure it would be different than your own country. So you will have to, adapt to those changes. So these are the things which everyone should be open to, make changes in their life, and then it would be quite easy to move to
Yeah, and
another
I guess
country.
you'll enjoy it a lot more as well. You won't be so negative about, oh, I have to, it's so hard to do this thing, rather than embracing it and finding the joy in being different. I see on the food thing, there's a British shop in Gothenburg, and it's really expensive for like biscuits from England, where it's like,
Yes,
you know,
yes.
over 50 sec for a pack of biscuits. And it's like, why?
But by the way, I like shortbreads a lot. But one thing I would want to mention here is the weather, because a lot of time, and specifically, it's a very common topic which everybody will talk about, mostly in Delhi. Weather is the hottest, thing which anybody would talk about, and that's one of the change which anybody has to go through. I come from a place where the temperature is, peak summers is 45 degrees Celsius, which is peak summers. It may go above as well. So it's one of the hottest part of, India. But then after moving here, it goes into minus, and even, snow and everything, dark,
Yeah.
summers, sun till 11. So that is also one of the very important part you actually have to adapt to, is that the weather changes, and when the weather changes, your food habits, your clothing, your, going out habits,
Yeah.
everything changes. So a lot of time I've interacted, or I've got those comments on social media that, Sweden people get depressed because
Yeah.
it's so dark during winters here. But then eventually that's a change you have to make, like I did, or, I know a lot of my friends that you do a lot of social, interaction with your friends. You do house parties, you go for dinners, and, do all that stuff. You just don't stay at home just because it's
No,
dark
exactly.
outside. I mean, it will start getting dark at 3 o'clock, but then you don't sleep at
No.
3 o'clock, right?
I found that it's a very good point you bring up, because a lot of people have said, how have you managed the winters? And for me, like, I'm quite a social person back home. I like to see my friends and go to the pub and play sport with them. I'm coming here not knowing many people when I first moved. I still don't know many people now, but I know more and more every month, that I can plan things. And the first winter was really tough, but some things that really helped was planning
Yes.
social things with people in the evenings. And most of the people I did things with won't have been Swedish, because they're kind of used to it. Whereas a lot of my friends from Spain and other places, they want to go out, they want to still have that social interaction. It's very tough to have that change. But that's a very interesting point you brought up. Thank you. So thank you for your time, Rajeev. It's been really eye-opening listening to you talk about Sweden and having to move during COVID, and what it's like to work in IT from IKEA, and the perspective you've got from India to Sweden, and I guess kind of European culture in general. I really enjoyed your information on the food. I think it's been quite popular on this. Is Western Europeans just can't do food, or Northern Europeans can't do food compared to the rest of the world. My Spanish friend was the same. He's like, yeah, food's awful. It's just not the same. And like the food culture of
Yes.
eating it with loads of people is not the same, which is quite amusing to really think about. Because even for me in the UK, it's a similar thing. We aren't as blessed with cuisine as deep as India or Spain, but we have a good number of international restaurants, or in most places you can visit, which is great for variation. Yeah, and thank you for joining. I give this a chance for you to kind of share your social media, and if anyone wants to have tips on moving, do you want to just give a quick intro into what you do and your handles and things?
Yeah, thanks. First of all, thanks for inviting me for this podcast, and I really like sharing my experience and information I've earned in last 2.5 years. I've gone through I've bought a house or an apartment recently. I've got a car here, and I've got a kid here. My parents were here, so I've used some of the medical services during that period. So I kind of have a habit that I do a lot of research before buying anything, be it a house, be it a car, or even planning. So I've gained a lot of experience and I have a habit to talk. So I have gained a lot of knowledge from other people as well. So that's what I at some point I decided that I should I was doing that already informally. So I thought of creating an Instagram page. Actually, I already had a page where I was sharing food and my travel
Yeah.
stories or experience. But then I thought that why not start sharing the information or the knowledge I have. And then the first post I shared, which was about the parental benefits in Sweden, and I was quite surprised to know those benefits when I had my son. That this is something I should share with my friends and family and people I know. And I cannot do that with everyone individually over a phone call. So I decided to create a video, and I posted it in on my Instagram channel, which is Jaipurite in Sweden. And then it went viral. So I have like 1 million views for that video itself. So and that actually triggered something that and it triggered something, and then it brought a memory that when I was planning to move here, I didn't had this information. I was looking for this information all over YouTube, Quora, and I didn't get this information. And now if I have this information, I should why not start sharing it. I know that there would be people looking for this. So then it was April 2021 when I started that channel, and somewhere last in the end of 2021 I started sharing information about Sweden. And since then it's been a long journey. I have now 30 K plus followers on my handle, and I try to share my experiences, my knowledge, and something which I should share for people to help to find a job in Sweden, or an information which I kind of feel that okay, if somebody I might be looking for it, then there could be another person who was looking for it. So why not?
Completely.
So you would find a lot of information on my Instagram channel, and that's what I do. I don't run that channel as a business. So you can always connect me if you have, or if you want some information, or if you're looking for something within Sweden or anything. So and with my own experience, I generally give genuine information, not reading it here and there. So yeah, that's what you can trust me on. But yeah, please follow me on Instagram and look for Jaipurite in Sweden. Sweden, Jaipurite, because I belong from Jaipur. That's my native city, so that's why it's a Jaipurite in Sweden.
That's great, and as always, we'll put the handle on the comments, and we'll tag you in posts so people can find you and hopefully get some great advice on living in Sweden and then moving abroad. Thank you so much, and as always, if you did enjoy this podcast and found something useful, please let us know. Give us a comment, like, and share it with your friends and family if you think they can find some really good use out of this. And we'll see you next time. Thank you.